Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we cut through the noise, sift through the sources, and really try to pull out those golden nuggets of insight you need to be truly well informed.
Yeah, getting straight to the good stuff.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into a truth that, honestly, keeps a lot of e-commerce entrepreneurs up at night.
hmm
Your sales might be climbing, your products are great, your marketing's working, but the money, it just never seems to actually be there.
It's that feeling, isn't it? Like you're in a cash-sucking nightmare or maybe just frantically wandering around a financial maze,
Ye-
blindfolded.
That's a great way to put it.
A maze.
Yeah, and it's a common paradox, right? Despite these huge opportunities in e-commerce, so many business owners are just perpetually short on cash.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And that's exactly what Profit First for E-commerce Sellers by Syndi Thomason tackles head on.
Right.
So our mission today is basically to unpack this system, pull out the most important bits, and help you figure out how to transform your business from, well, a cash guzzler into something predictable, something that actually makes money consistently.
Yeah, predictable profitability, that's the dream. And we've gone deep into Cindy's book for this, looking at the chapters, the testimonials, even the foreword by Mike Michalovich, who, created the original Profit First.
That's right. So you're going to hear practical advice, real stories from sellers who've been through it,
Mm-hmm.
and some, frankly, surprising things that make these finance concepts feel really clear, actionable even.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Mike Michalovich calls e-commerce the biggest entrepreneurial opportunity in the history of mankind. A modern-day gold rush.
He does, high praise. But then he adds that crucial part. It's making countless people rich, yes, but also, sadly, countless others poor.
That contrast really hits home.
It does. It highlights the core problem we're talking about.
So this gold rush is happening, but the elephant in the room for so many owners is just not having the cash, even when sales look good.
Exactly. And Cindy's analogy, that scrambling blindfolded through a thorny Victorian maze, that really captures the feeling.
Talk a bit more about that feeling. What does that blindfolded maze actually, feel like day to day for someone running an e-commerce store?
It's just constant financial anxiety. You see revenue coming in, maybe big numbers sometimes, but there's no real clarity. Where is it going? Is there enough for payroll next week? Enough for inventory? Enough for me?
Yeah.
And this isn't a small problem. Look at some Amazon stats from around 2017, just to give context. For the first time, over half the units sold on Amazon Marketplace globally came from third-party sellers.
Wow, half.
Half. And over 300,000 new U.S.-based small and medium businesses started selling on Amazon that year alone.
That's huge growth.
Massive. More than 140,000 of those SMBs hit over $100,000 in sales. And the number of million-dollar sellers jumped 9% year over year by 2018. Multi-million-dollar sellers went from 1% to 3%.
Okay, so the opportunity is clearly there. The money's flowing. Why are so many people struggling to actually keep it, to profit? Sydney points to four main barriers, right?
Yeah, in Chapter 1, she lays them out clearly. First, this belief that everything will just magically sell during the busy season.
The Q4 miracle.
Right.
Yeah.
Second, relying on debt to grow before the business model is actually working efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
Third, just a lack of basic accounting and financial literacy, not understanding the numbers.
Okay.
And fourth, maybe the biggest one, simply failing to make profitability the focus, like truly making it the priority.
These sound familiar. Let's take that first one, believing everything will sell. What are the actual consequences of that thinking, and how does Profit First tackle it differently?
Well, the consequence is often massive overordering of inventory. You sink cash into stock based on hope, and then you're stuck with dead inventory when the season ends, tying up that cash.
Right. Cash you needed elsewhere.
Exactly. And the second one, debt. Borrowing to fuel growth before you've fixed the leaks in your system is just digging a deeper hole. Profit First flips this. It forces you to look at your cash reality now, before you scale, and demands you take profit from every sale right from the start.
And Syndi Thomason's background is key here, isn't it? She's an accountant who saw these specific e-commerce issues.
Precisely. She wasn't just applying a generic system. She lived these challenges, saw them with thousands of clients at her firm, Bookskeep, and specifically customized Profit First for the unique demands of selling online. She used it herself, too. That real-world testing is crucial.
Okay, so we understand the problem. Let's get into the solution. The core Profit First system uses this really clever analogy from dietary science. Unpack that for us. How does managing money relate to managing, what we eat?
It's brilliant, honestly, because it makes it intuitive. Principle 1, use small plates.
Okay.
Think about it. Plate sizes grew, what, 23% between 1900 and 2012? And studies link that to weight gain, maybe 5 pounds a year.
Wow, really?
Yeah. In business, if all your money sits in one big checking account, one big plate, you tend to spend it all.
Parkinson's law, right. Expenses rise to meet income?
Exactly. So Profit First says your main income account is just a serving tray. You periodically dish out the money into smaller, dedicated accounts, small plates for profit, owner's compensation, tax, and operating expenses. That physical separation stops you from accidentally eating your profit.
That makes immediate sense. Smaller plates, less accidental overspending. What about serve sequentially? Like eating your veggies first?
Precisely. In business, this means you always allocate money to profit, owner's comp, and tax first, before anything else.
Okay. The important stuff first.
Right. Then and only then do you look at paying bills. And critically, you only pay them from what's left in the operating expenses, OPEX account.
Ah, so if there isn't enough in OPEX.
That's your flashing red light. It means you need to cut expenses, not dip into your profit or tax money. It forces that hard decision right away.
Okay, and remove temptation. How do you hide the financial junk food?
You literally move the tempting accounts, and especially that profit account, out of arm's reach. Use separate bank accounts, maybe even at a different bank. Make it inconvenient to just borrow from yourself for impulse spending or covering shortfalls.
Create friction. I like that. And the last one, enforce a rhythm. Like eating regularly to avoid binging.
Yeah, consistency is key. You allocate your income and pay your bills on a set schedule, typically twice a month, like the 10th and 25th.
Okay.
This stops the chaos. You see cash accumulated in the different accounts. You see where it's really going. It replaces that panic, reactive scramble with controlled, frequent management.
That framework sounds incredibly powerful just on its own. But now let's get specific to e-commerce. There are some key adjustments, right? Like, what if most of your money comes from Amazon payouts?
Right, that's common. If 80% or more of your revenue is from those biweekly Amazon payouts, then Amazon itself kind of acts like your income account.
So you don't necessarily need a separate income bank account.
Not necessarily. You can have the Amazon payouts go straight into your OPEX account. Then, on your allocation days, the 10th and 25th, you transfer the designated percentages from OPEX to your profit, owner's comp, tax, and inventory accounts. It streamlines things.
Okay. And you mentioned Carol Raines earlier, one of the sellers in the book. She had a really critical tip about those Amazon payouts and bank accounts. What was that again? It sounded important.
Oh, absolutely vital. Her point was, you must notify Amazon before you change the bank account where your payouts go.
Why? What happens if you don't?
Amazon's system is super sensitive to potential fraud. If they suddenly see a new, unannounced bank account linked for payouts, they can instantly suspend your seller account.
Wow, okay. That would be catastrophic.
Totally. Halts your cash flow completely. So always notify seller support first. Let them know you're changing it. Get their okay. Avoid that headache.
Good tip. Now, here's a big adjustment for e-commerce. The book stresses needing a separate crucial checking account just for inventory. Why is this one so important for online sellers?
This is where it gets really interesting. Profit First talks about calculating profit based on real revenue. That's your top-line revenue minus the direct costs of what you sold, materials, subcontractors, that sort of thing.
Okay.
For an e-commerce business, your single biggest material cost is usually your inventory. It's the physical stuff you sell.
Right.
So by putting money specifically aside for inventory into its own bank account, you're doing two things. One, you're accurately reflecting that real revenue concept. Two, and maybe more importantly, you're protecting the cash needed to buy more inventory. You stop it from getting accidentally spent on, say, marketing or software subscriptions that should come out of OPEX.
That makes sense. You wall off the money needed to keep the shelves stocked, so to speak.
Exactly. It protects your core business engine.
And what about seasonality? That's huge in e-commerce. Q4 madness, summer slumps, whatever it is for your niche. How does Profit First handle those big swings? Fixed percentages wouldn't work year-round, would they?
No, they wouldn't. And the system accounts for that. It's not rigid. You need to adjust your allocation strategy based on your known business cycle.
How?
Well, for example, during your peak season when cash flow is high, instead of just letting your OPEX account swell up based on a fixed percentage and then likely spending it, you might maintain a static dollar amount in OPEX.
Oh, okay.
Any revenue above that needed to fund the static OPEX level gets funneled perhaps more aggressively into profit or into other accounts like a DRIP or Vault account, which we'll talk about. These act like savings buffers to smooth out the cash flow during your slower months.
Ah, so you save the excess from the feast to cover the famine later.
Precisely. It requires awareness of your own seasonal patterns, but the system provides the tools to manage it proactively.
Okay, so to do any of this effectively, you first need to know your numbers. The book talks about doing a profit assessment, what's involved there, how does it help you, as Syndi says, take off the rose-colored glasses.
It's basically a reality check, a snapshot of your business's actual financial health right now. You need a few key documents. Your balance sheet, specifically the last month of the previous year and the most recent month end. You're looking at the difference in the balances between those 2 points in time.
Okay, but change over time.
Exactly. And you also need your profit and loss, or P&L statement, usually year-to-date through the prior month end.
Got it. Balance sheets and P&L. Then what?
Then you pull out specific numbers to figure out these key categories. Top-line revenue, your total sales, inventory costs. Then real revenue, which is top line minus inventory.
Right, that crucial real revenue number again.
Yes. Then you figure out your actual profit. It's usually the difference in your cash balances minus the difference in your liabilities over that period. Your owner's pay, what you actually took, tax paid, specifically income tax, and finally, your operating expenses.
Okay, so you get these dollar amounts. What do you do with them?
You convert them into percentages, but not percentages of top-line revenue, percentages of your real revenue. That's the key baseline.
Why real revenue?
Because it removes the cost of goods sold, giving a truer picture of the funds actually available to run the business and generate profit. Once you have those percentages, profit percentage, owner's pay percentage, tax, OPEX, you compare them to the healthy business benchmarks Mike Michalovich provides in the original Profit First book.
And those benchmarks vary by revenue size, right? Like a smaller business might have a higher owner's pay percentage target than a larger one.
Exactly. For example, a business with real revenue under $250K might aim for 50% owner's pay, while a multi-million-dollar business might aim for 5–10%. Profit targets might range from 5% to 20%, taxes generally around 15%, and OPEX can vary widely, maybe 15 to 50%, again, depending on revenue and business model.
So how should someone use these benchmarks? Or are they like hard rules?
Think of them more like a compass or maybe a diagnostic tool. They show you what healthy looks like in your scale. If your assessment shows your OPEX is eating up 60% of your real revenue and the benchmark for your size is 30%, that's a huge red flag. It tells you where the problem likely lies.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, you mentioned seasonality can skew a single profit assessment. So what's the monthly cash flow spreadsheet?
Right. If you do your assessment in, say, December during a huge spike, it might look artificially good. The monthly cash flow spreadsheet takes a different approach. You look at just 1 month of actual cash transactions, but you pick a typical sales month, not your peak or your absolute slowest.
A normal month.
A normal month. And importantly, you base the analysis on your net payout from Amazon. That's after they've taken their fees or the equivalent from other platforms. This helps you establish sustainable target allocation percentages that work for your average month, which you can then adjust for seasonality using things like the drip account.
Okay, this sounds thorough, but what if someone's listening and thinking, whoa, this is a lot of numbers, I'm just starting out, I don't even have proper books yet? What's the advice then?
Syndi's advice is brilliant. Just start. Don't let perfection be the enemy in progress.
So what's the absolute minimum viable start?
Open 2 bank accounts. Seriously. That's it to begin. 1 checking account, label it inventory. 1 savings account, label it profit.
Okay, 2 accounts. Then what?
Start incredibly small. When your next payout comes in, transfer just 1%, one single percent, into that profit savings account. Just get the habit started.
1%. Anyone can do 1%.
Exactly. And then, maybe next quarter, look at your expenses. Find one small thing to cut, saving maybe 1% of your revenue, and transfer that saving into profit too. It's about building the muscle, the discipline, tiny step by tiny step. And you can actually grab a quick start guide for this exact process at profitfirstecom.com.
Okay, that feels manageable. Let's talk more about inventory because the book calls it inventory insanity. It's where so many e-commerce businesses get tripped up, even go belly up.
It's absolutely critical. Managing inventory profitably is maybe the biggest challenge.
You mentioned the separate inventory account. How does that simple act help stop the insanity?
It brings Parkinson's law to your rescue, essentially. When all the money is jumbled together, you'll find ways to spend it maybe on speculative inventory buys or excessive marketing, thinking it will drive sales to cover it.
Hope-based spending.
Right. But when you have a dedicated pot just for inventory, funded by actual sales of previous inventory, the limitation forces discipline. You have $6 in the inventory account, so you can only spend $6 on new inventory. It forces you to be more frugal, more strategic, more innovative about which inventory to buy.
Can you share an example from the book? How did this play out for real sellers?
Yeah, Carol Raines mentioned that initially her inventory costs felt too huge and overwhelming to track alongside everything else. Separating it helped her build up funds systematically for her seasonal ramps, like for a bug bite product in the summer. And crucially, it stopped her from just throwing money at marketing willy-nilly when inventory funds were low. And Mark Brynwall was really candid. He said his #1 issue was inventory management. Before Profit First, with one big bank account, he honestly had no way of knowing if he actually had the cash for a big inventory order. Now, with the separate account, the answer is clear. Yes or no. Black and white.
So how do you practically fund that inventory account day to day or payout to payout?
The basic method is, look at the cost of the goods, the inventory that were sold during your last payout period. Calculate that dollar amount. Then transfer exactly that amount from your main receiving account, like OPEX if Amazon pays there, into your dedicated inventory bank account.
So money comes in from sales, and you immediately set aside the portion needed to replace what was just sold.
Exactly. It creates a direct link. Then after you've done this for a few months and have some data, you can refine it using that monthly cash flow spreadsheet to set a target percentage of your payouts to allocate to inventory, which might be simpler long term.
Got it. Now, once you have that baseline control, what are the really important inventory metrics sellers need to track to ensure they're not just managing cash, but managing inventory profitably?
Okay, several key ones. First, ROI, return on investment. Robin Johnson, who's a sourcing expert featured in the book, really hammers this home. She advises aiming for at least 40% ROI when sourcing new products, and ideally pushing that towards 50%, even 70% over time.
And how do you calculate that?
Simple formula. Products, profit cost of product,
Yeah.
by 100. But you need to look at it systematically. At the individual product level, yes, but also for your whole portfolio, and especially for your top 10% and bottom 10% performing products. Where are you really making money and where are you potentially losing it?
Okay, ROI is crucial. What about gross margin? How is that different?
Gross margin is often a bit more sobering than ROI. It's your revenue minus all direct costs of goods sold, expressed as a percentage of revenue. It tends to be lower than your average ROI might suggest.
Why is that?
A few reasons. Maybe a handful of superstar products with huge ROIs are skewing your average perception. Or, more commonly, incomplete cost data. Maybe you're not factoring in all the shipping or duties or prep fees accurately. Or maybe aggressive repricing is eroding your margin. Mark Brynwall aims for a solid 30% plus gross margin across his business.
And Jeremy Gross had a point about cost changing too, right?
Yeah, Jeremy emphasized that your cost per unit isn't static. Each manufacturing badge might have a different price. Amazon fees change constantly. So you need to track your actual cost of goods sold over time to get an accurate gross margin. You can't just set it and forget it.
Okay, ROI, gross margin. What else?
Economics of one unit. This is powerful. Calculate your total fixed overhead costs, rent, software, salaries, etc., and divide that by the total number of units you sold in a period.
What does that tell you?
It tells you exactly how much profit each individual unit needs to contribute just to cover your fixed overheads and break even. It helps you understand the minimum margin you need on every single sale.
Wow, okay. That puts pressure on pricing and sourcing.
It does. And finally, keep a close eye on your inventory age report. Specifically, track the value of inventory that's been sitting there for over 90 days as a percentage of your total inventory value.
Why 90 days?
It's a common benchmark. If that percentage is creeping up, it means your inventory isn't turning over fast enough. You're tying up cash in slow-moving stock, potentially racking up storage fees and risking obsolescence. Healthy businesses turn inventory quickly.
Okay, those metrics provide crucial visibility. But let's talk about a huge temptation, borrowing for inventory. Why is this such a dangerous trap, this vicious circle Syndi describes?
It's so tempting, especially when facing a cash crunch or wanting to scale fast. But the cycle often looks like this. You use loans or credit cards, buy inventory, maybe bridge a slow season. You only make minimum payments because cash is tight. Then you need another loan for the next batch, or maybe to cover operating expenses because the loan proceeds got diverted. Right. You end up juggling debt, paying interest instead of profit, maybe using new loan money just to pay off old loans. You're not actually getting ahead, you're just servicing debt.
And Chris Potter had a specific warning about Amazon loans versus lines of credit.
Yeah, that was insightful. Amazon loans often have fixed repayment schedules, like a mortgage. They deduct it straight from your payouts. They're best suited for specific one-time large buys, maybe like a big closeout deal.
Okay.
Lines of credit, on the other hand, often have interest-only payment options initially, making them seem more flexible, maybe better for consistently replenishable items. The trap is treating an Amazon loan like a flexible line of credit. The fixed payments can really squeeze your cash flow if you haven't budgeted precisely.
And Jeremy Gross saw friends get caught in this.
He did. He
Hmm.
talked about seeing friends scale really fast using debt, getting caught in this cycle, and ending up with basically nothing left. It becomes this ugly cycle, as he put it. His takeaway was stark. It doesn't always play out like people hope. Scaling with debt is risky.
So how does the profit-first approach help sellers manage inventory without falling into that debt trap?
It fundamentally shifts the mindset from reactive borrowing to proactive planning and saving. It's about building buffers and managing risk using your own cash.
Like Carol planning for missing inventory.
Exactly. She knows Amazon will lose some of her inventory, sometimes not a matter of if, but when. So she mitigates risk by shipping smaller quantities of a single SKU at a time, left potential loss if a shipment goes astray.
Smart.
And Mark Brenwall's approach. He now systematically builds up cash in his inventory account, or sometimes his separate vault account, to order a 3-month buffer stock from China. He pays for it with cash he already has set aside.
So no frantic scramble for a loan when stock runs low?
Right. He said, having that buffer paid for gives me options.
Yeah.
It avoids that horrible feeling of stocking out, which costs you sales and search ranking. It's about building resilience with your own money, generated by the system.
This brings us back squarely to those foundational bank accounts. You said earlier Syndi herself failed initially because she tried tracking on paper. Why are real, separate bank accounts so non-negotiable for profit first?
It boils down to human behavior and psychology. Parkinson's law is real. If the money's easily accessible in one big pile, you will find ways to spend it. Paper tracking, spreadsheets. They're too easy to ignore or manipulate when things get tight.
Out of sight, out of mind, or maybe too easy to change the number.
Exactly. Real bank accounts provide real-time, unavoidable data. Every time you log in, you see the balances. That physical separation, the actual act of transferring money between accounts, creates a pause, a moment of intention. It forces you to stick to the plan and confront the reality of your cash position.
What about the sellers featured in the book? What was their experience moving to multiple accounts? Did it feel complicated?
Initially, maybe a little setup work, but the clarity they gained far outweighed it. Carol loved the logic. Seeing the distinct accounts helped her make better trade-offs like, should I spend more on inventory this month or marketing? And it finally gave her the confidence to pay herself consistently.
And Mark, he uses 9 accounts now, right? That sounds like a lot.
It does, but he says he's stoked about it. He went from having no idea if he could afford a big inventory buy to knowing exactly what he can handle, even unexpected invoices. It brings peace of mind.
And Jeremy.
Jeremy was already using sub-accounts personally, so he loved applying it to his business. He called the accounts buckets that provide real-time comfort or discomfort. If the OPEX bucket looks low, it forces a decision now, not when payroll is due and it's too late. It makes finances tangible.
Okay, let's quickly recap those foundational accounts for e-commerce. Income account needed if you have diverse revenue streams, otherwise Amazon can act as it.
Correct. If you're mostly Amazon bi-weekly payouts, you can skip the dedicated income account and just have payouts go to OPEX, then allocate from there. Just remember Carol's tip. Tell Amazon before you change accounts.
Inventory account, absolutely crucial. Funded based on cost of goods sold, protects cash for replenishment.
Yes, non-negotiable for e-commerce. Can be linked to credit cards for points, but the cash must be in the bank account to cover the balance. Remember Jeremy's, oh wait, we're good moment. That's the feeling you want.
Profit account, the primacy effect in action. Start small, maybe 1%, allocate first, increase quarterly towards your target, 20% of real revenue.
Exactly. Prioritize it psychologically and practically.
Owners, pay account, pay yourself. Start small, maybe 5%. Aim for consistency, build a 3-6-month reserve. Carol found this really empowering.
Hugely important for long-term sustainability and motivation.
Tax account for state, federal income tax only. Target around 15% of real revenue. See your CPA regularly, especially before Q4.
Yes, don't raid this one. Jeremy's CPA loved him for being prepared.
And finally, the operating expenses, OPEX account, needs constant scrutiny. Review expenses quarterly, cut the deadwood, monitor marketing ROI. Syndi mentioned 6% of real revenue average for $1 plus clients.
Right, this is where Parkinson's law bites hardest if you're not careful. Use a dedicated credit card maybe, pay it off fully each allocation cycle.
And managing OPEX during peak season, use a static dollar amount, not a percentage, and sweep the excess into profit or a drip account.
Crucial adjustment for seasonal businesses. Avoids lifestyle inflation or wasteful spending during the boom times. Carol learned that with her Beg Bite product.
The overall feeling from Mark and Jeremy was just about clarity, knowing where the money is.
That's the core benefit. Mark
Right.
said, I know where my cash goes. I know what's happening. Jeremy, it allows you to make a decision. The one bucket, it's too big, too vague. It shifts you from guessing to knowing.
Okay, foundational accounts covered. Now, the advanced accounts. Cindy's rule. When in doubt, open an account. What's usually the first one people add once they've mastered the basics?
Often, it's the drip account, or sometimes called the squirrel fund.
Okay, what's that for?
Its main job is to smooth out seasonality. Remember how Amazon pays out 26 times a year? That means 2 months have 3 payouts instead of 2.
Ah, the extra payout months.
Exactly. So one strategy is to take the OPEX portion you would normally allocate from those 2 extra payouts and put it straight into the drip account. You also fund it by sweeping the excess cash from your peak season, like we discussed with the static OPEX level.
And what do you use the drip account for?
You drip it back into your OPEX account during your lean months to maintain consistent operations. Or you can use it to pay taxes, cover unexpected dips, or even intentionally save up for business growth initiatives, like a new product launch, or building up inventory for the next peak. Mark mentioned learning the hard way about needing this after feeling rich in Q1 and then hitting a wall in the summer. Jeremy uses his drip savings for his SEP IRA contributions.
Okay, drip account for smoothing things out. What other advanced accounts might make sense?
A dedicated product development account can be smart. You fund it gradually, becoming your own bank for launching new products, rather than raiding operating cash. If you have significant shipping costs, especially international freight, a separate shipping freight account gives you really clear visibility into that specific expense category.
Makes sense. What about advertising? That's a huge spend for many.
Absolutely. An advertising account forces accountability. You allocate funds specifically for ads, and you track the ROI generated from that specific spend. Cindy had a client who spent $200 on ads. Revenue went up, sure, but the dedicated account showed overall profitability didn't improve. That's powerful insight.
If you have employees, a payroll account seems obvious.
Essential. Ensures you always have funds for payroll, including accounting for those months with extra pay periods if you pay biweekly. It's also a great way to test affordability. Can you fund this account enough to cover a potential new hire or a raise before you commit?
And taxes besides income tax.
Yes, especially now with complex sales tax rules, post-SCOTUS rulings. A dedicated sales VET tax account is critical. And remember to fund this based on your total revenue, because that's what your liability is based on, not just your net payouts after fees.
Good point. Any others?
Maybe a licensing royalty commission account if you have specific fees tied directly to revenue.
And then the big one, the vault account. You mentioned Mark using this. What exactly is it?
The vault is your ultimate safety net. Think of it as a business emergency fund. It should be in an ultra-low risk, maybe interest-bearing account, ideally holding enough cash to cover 3 months of essential operating expenses if your sales completely stop tomorrow.
3 months cushion. Why is that so vital in the e-commerce?
Because, as Carol bluntly put it, Amazon suspensions are not a matter of if, but when. She had products suspended unexpectedly. Mark used his vault to fight a $25,000 patent lawsuit that came out of nowhere. Jeremy used his savings for a copyright infringement issue. Things happen.
So it's not just about buying time.
It's partly buying time, yes, but it's also about forcing clear-headed decisions during a crisis. When you know you have that buffer, you can react strategically, not desperately. It gives you breathing room to figure things out.
And Mark, with his 9 accounts, how long does this all take him?
Is that about 20 minutes every 2 weeks? He adds a new account only when an expense category gets big enough that he wants separate tracking. His take? It doesn't feel like any burden to me at all. The clarity is worth the small time investment.
Okay, so you've got the accounts set up. How does this translate into day-to-day cash flow management? You mentioned enforcing a rhythm.
That rhythm is everything. It gets you out of the constant cycle of spending reactively whenever money hits the main account, then panicking when bills are due.
How do you measure cash flow easily with this system?
Honestly, just by looking at your bank accounts, daily check-ins become meaningful. You see the balances in each bucket. Cindy said before Profit First, her cash flow felt like random noise. Now it stays predictable in a normal range.
And the allocation process itself.
It's quick once you're set up. Carol and Mark both said it takes them maybe 5–10 minutes on the 10th and 25th. Allocate the funds based on percentages, pay the credit cards linked to specific accounts like OPEX or inventory from those accounts. Mark said, I know, okay, in this moment, I'm taken care of. Jeremy does his every other Thursday, takes minutes. Very manageable.
And the allocation strategy depends a bit on revenue source.
Just slightly. If you're mostly Amazon biweekly, allocate directly from those payouts using your target percentages. Remember to handle those 2 extra payouts. Strategically, maybe move the OPEX portion to profit or drip. If you have more diverse income streams, 20% plus from elsewhere, then use a main income account as a serving tray, allocating everything on the 10th and 25th.
Okay, now for the really fun part, profit distribution. This is the reward, right?
Absolutely. This is the return on your investment as the owner, separate from your owner's pay, which is compensation for the work you do in the business.
How often do you take it and how much?
The rhythm is quarterly, usually on the first day of the new quarter. And Syndi recommends a specific method for e-commerce. Take 50% of the funds added to the profit account during the previous quarter.
Wait, 50% of what was added, not 50% of the total balance. Why?
Exactly. By only distributing half of what you saved in that quarter, you allow the profit account balance itself to keep growing faster. It builds your reserves while still giving you a significant reward. It's a bit more conservative, but builds resilience.
So what do people actually do with this profit distribution? It's not meant to be plowed back into the business, right?
How does that? This is for you. To celebrate the success, Carol mentioned upgrading her groceries, putting money towards a bathroom remodel. Jeremy uses his for investments, helping with his daughter's braces, taking his wife for spa days or nice dinners. Mark actually used his profit distributions, accumulated over time, to help buy a business in Thailand to secure visas. It's about funding the life you want.
That's fantastic. What if a business owner has debt, though? Can they still take profit? How does that work?
Yes, but strategically. The first step is to freeze the debt, stop taking on more. Then, aggressively cut expenses, maybe aiming for 10% lower OPEX than your initial assessment showed.
Okay, stop the bleeding.
Right. Then, you still take your quarterly profit distribution using that 50% of what was added method. But instead of spending it all on fun stuff, you allocate a significant portion, maybe all of it initially, to paying down your debt faster. You're using the business's profit to systematically eliminate the debt while still building some reserves.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, one of the coolest things in the book is this idea of reverse engineering your business to support your life. Jeremy Gross did this to leave his day job. Walk us through how that works.
It's incredibly empowering because it starts with your needs, not just the business's. Step 1. Decide your desired annual personal income. Let's say it's $75,000.
Okay, the target life number.
Right. Step 2. Look at the profit-first benchmarks for owner's pay for your business's target size. If you're aiming for, say, the $0 $250K real revenue range, the benchmark for owner's pay might be 50%. Step 3. Calculate the real revenue your business needs to generate to support that pay. So $75,000 divided by 50% or 0.50 means you need $150,000 in real revenue.
Ah, okay. That's the business target derived from the personal target.
Exactly. Step 4. From that $150,000 real revenue target, you can then calculate the target dollar amounts for your other allocations. Profit, say 10% is $15, tax 15% is $22.05, and OPEX, maybe 25% is $37.05. Add those up with owner's pay, it equals $150K.
So you know what the whole picture needs to look like.
Yes. Step 5. Estimate the top-line revenue, total sales needed. You do this by taking your target real revenue, $150K, and dividing it by your estimated gross margin percentage. If your margin is, say, 34%, 0.34, you'd need roughly $441,200 in total sales. 150K is 734.
Wow, that gives you a concrete sales goal tied directly to your personal income goal.
Right. And then comes the crucial reality check. Is that sales level achievable with your current products and market? If not, you either need to adjust your desired income, find ways to drastically increase your margins, or develop a plan to reach that sales volume. It forces realistic planning.
And Jeremy actually did this.
He did. He practiced it for months, watching his owner's pay account grow, building confidence. He factored in the costs he'd lose from his corporate job, health insurance, 401k match, and made the leap in June. His reflection was powerful. You only have one shot at this life, and it's nice to be able to make informed decisions for yourself. He credits Profit First for giving him that clarity. And you can download an owner pay calculator spreadsheet to do this for yourself at profitfirstecom.com.
That's amazing. He even uses a similar reverse engineering approach for launching new products.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Instead of just finding a product and hoping it will be profitable, he starts with the target sales price and his desired profit, either a percentage or a specific dollar amount per unit.
Okay, profit first, literally.
Literally. He subtracts that desired profit from the sales price. The remaining amount is his total budget for everything else. Manufacturing costs, shipping, packaging, Amazon fees, launch marketing, everything.
Well, the costs have to fit the profit goal, not the other way around.
Precisely. He then works backwards with suppliers and logistics providers to see if he can hit that budget number. If the numbers don't work, even if he's already spent money on samples or logos, he walks away. Data over emotion. His quote was great. You need to look at your facts, not just a feeling that it's all going to work out. He shared his product launch spreadsheet too, also available at profitfirstecom.com.
Okay, we've covered a lot of the power and the how-to, but where does this system sometimes fall apart? What are the common problems people run into, especially in e-commerce?
Well, one practical hurdle can be finding banks that offer multiple affordable checking accounts, especially outside the U.S., or for fully mobile sellers. Fees can add up, but Syndi is adamant. Don't let that be an excuse to just track on paper. The physical accounts are key. Find a way.
Right, paper tracking doesn't work long-term. What else?
Repaying existing loans can be really tough if your product margins are thin to begin with. Profit First will starkly reveal this problem by showing you there's no cash left after allocations, but it doesn't magically fix bad margins. You still have to do the hard work of improving your profitability or cutting costs deeply.
It highlights the problem, doesn't solve the underlying issue on its own.
Correct. Another common one is underestimating tax liability, especially with a big Q4. That's why seeing your CPA in Q3 is crucial to project sales and adjust your tax allocation percentage before the money comes in and gets spent.
And the inventory insanity can creep back in.
Definitely. That seductive myth that more inventory equals more cash flow is always lurking. It's only true if it's efficient, profitable inventory. Otherwise, it's just expensive storage.
Mike Michalowicz also listed some general pitfalls, things that trip people up implementing Profit First, regardless of industry. What was the first big one?
Too much too soon. Trying to allocate, say, 10% to profit right out of the gate when you're currently at zero. It feels good initially, but then you inevitably have to raid the account because your expenses haven't adjusted. Start small, 1 or 2%, build the habit, force the efficiency gradually.
Makes sense. What about the grow first, profit later idea?
He calls that a false choice. Truly healthy, sustainable companies are profitable first, and then they use that profit and stability to fuel organic, manageable growth. Chasing growth at the expense of profit is fragile.
And cutting costs? That seems good.
It is, but you have to avoid cutting the wrong costs. Don't flash things that genuinely improve efficiency just to save a few bucks in the short term. Invest smartly in things that save time or reduce errors.
What about terms like plowing back profits or reinvesting?
Mike sees those as often just fancy ways of saying borrowing from yourself. If your OPEX account is short, the answer isn't to dip into profit. The answer is OPEX is too high cut expenses. And using credit card limits as bridge loans is just digging a debt hole.
And rating the tax account.
Huge no-no. As your profit grows, your taxes grow. Don't assume your quarterly estimates are enough, especially if you have big profit distributions or pay down debt, which isn't tax deductible. Consult your CPA. Paying more tax is actually a sign of better business health.
Any other common mistakes?
Trying to add complexity, overthinking it, trying to factor in depreciation on a cash basis, or playing shell games with profit distributions. Keep it simple. Cash in, cash out, allocate based on the plan.
And the single biggest mistake that completely undermines it?
Skipping the bank accounts. We keep coming back to it because it's foundational. The system has to be physically in your path, in your bank login, forcing those real-time decisions. It's behavioral.
So accountability is key. Syndi even suggests finding an accountability partner.
Yeah, someone else who understands and believes in this organic growth, profit-focused mindset. Someone who can talk you down from making a bad, overly optimistic inventory buy when your accounts say you can't afford it. She even offers to help connect clients through her email, Syndi@profitfirstecom.com.
We have definitely covered a lot today.
Yeah.
And I think it's clear that, yeah, the struggle with cash flow is incredibly common, almost universal for entrepreneurs starting out.
It really is.
But it's also clear that you don't have to stay stuck in that maze. You've got the tools now, the framework to actually take control. Profitability is closer than you might think.
Absolutely. The key is simply taking that first step. You have to act.
And we really want to encourage you, if you're listening and this resonates, start simple. Like today, set up those two bank accounts, inventory and profit. It really is that easy to just begin.
It truly is. Just making that small commitment changes things.
Think about the stories we heard. Mark going from that financial maze to confidently prepping his business for a potential sale.
Yeah.
Jeremy making the leap from his day job to being a full-time entrepreneur with more time for his family, making informed choices.
Huge life changes.
And Carol transforming her bookkeeping from chaos to a clear, confident system ready for growth.
These are real results from applying these principles methodically.
And the ultimate benefit, maybe the simplest way Mark put it, was just, I know where my cash goes.
That knowledge is power. That clarity removes so much stress and anxiety. It gives you confidence, peace of mind.
It lets you make those informed decisions for yourself, as Jeremy said, making sure your business is actually serving the life you want to live, not the other way around.
Exactly. He said, overall, it's good because we only have one shot at this life, and it's nice to be able to make informed decisions for yourself. I attribute a lot of that to the methodical nature of Profit First. It really helps.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about. What could that kind of financial clarity, that control, mean for your life? What big decisions, personal, lifestyle, business, could you finally make if you had that confidence, that certainty, that peace of mind?
A powerful question. And to help you get started on finding those answers, remember to visit ProfitFirstEcom.com. You can grab the Quick Start Guide, the Owner Pay Calculator, Jeremy's Product Launch Spreadsheet. Lots of great resources there.
And you can contact Syndi directly, too, if you need more specific guidance, right?
Yes, her email is Syndi@ProfitFirstEcom.com. She and her team really specialize in helping e-commerce sellers implement this.